Dun, 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 dun. That's right. Today we'll be looking at this Quadra 700. So who doesn't love a Quadra 700, the true star of the original Jurassic Park movie?
Thanks, Dad.
Dennis.
So this particular example of a Quadra 700 is in some pretty rough cosmetic shape. It's very yellow. It's got scuffs and scratches all over. The lettering for Quadra has kind of been scratched off, unfortunately, but we'll see what we can do with it. So let's take a look at this machine before we take it apart and see if it works, and then try to fix it up if it doesn't. So this particular machine came from the Bit History surplus sales that they have. We got a video on the channel going through one of the surplus sales there, so you can take a look at that if you're interested in seeing the origin of this machine. But prior to that, it looked like this machine came from a school district. I've got an asset tag here from Cotter High School. It looks like it was asset number 6583, Quadra 700. Now one of the main problems with this machine is it's got these little feet here where the rubber would go in between them, and they're all kind of broken off. So it's not really great for standing up, as most Quadras are used in this fashion. It will balance, it seems pretty okay, but they do have the rubber feet on the side, or what would be the bottom probably, as this one was used in the school with the monitor on top. Now the Quadra 700 shares a form factor with the Macintosh TCX, the Macintosh TCI. So you can see the TCI and the TCX look an awful lot like the Quadra 700. But it's what's inside the Quadra 700 that makes it special. So as we look more at this machine, what I normally like to do is keep these kind of things on the machines because they tell a bit of history about where they came from. But this one's already peeling off and very yellowed, and I think we'll just take it off and see if we can clean up some of this cruft here. And see, this asset sticker had been on here for a long time, as the plastics underneath are not yellowed. So it's gonna be an interesting look, but we'll do what we can. On the back, this is the most yellowed. It's almost turned into an orange. It's so yellowed here. So my guess is this was sitting in front of a window with the sun shining directly in on it. You can see where the monitor was connected. It's not yellowed, but everything else here, very yellowed. Also, underneath the Ethernet port here, the AAUI adapter, not yellowed. Also interesting, we have this Central Ink Magnapull that's attached to the back here. I'm not sure what that's for. It seems like something would go into it and then could be used to hang something off of it. I'm not sure if it just is adhered here. It looks like there is some glue residue underneath, so that's my guess, but I have no idea what that is. Maybe it's for asset protection. Maybe you could lock the machine to a desk with it, although the Kensington port is here, so that's probably what would have been used. Anyway, we can see that the access screw has been removed, so this machine clearly has been taken apart before. And on the side, not as yellow, but I got a pencil mark from some student probably. And as noted on the side or bottom, we've got the feet, not yellowed at all. So let's turn it around backwards, open it up. Let's pull the two tabs up. Inside, we can see that we have the hard drive's been pulled. That's pretty typical. We do still have the floppy drive in there, and we have quite a bit of dust on the board itself. So I think what I'd like to do is get this board out, clean out the case, clean off the board, and then we'll see if it powers on. I don't believe these machines use any capacitors that are prone to failure or leaking, but we'll take a look when we get things apart. So just as with the TCX and TCI, there's a little clip underneath the power supply that holds it in. Just need to pull that back. And there would be the screw here, as mentioned, but that's not here. So with the clip pulled back, the power supply should just lift right out. And these are always a bit tough to get just due to the age. So. All right, so there's our power supply. This is interchangeable with the TCI TCX. And then we have our drive bay here, and this just has a screw normally that would hold everything down, but that's missing. So you pull the tab, slide it back, and then you can lift it out. And we'll disconnect our floppy drive and be able to pull that right out. So next we'll disconnect the speaker, and then there's this little tab here, lift up on that, and then the speaker assembly just slides back, very dusty. And then we've got our reset and interrupt switches, so you can push that forward and that just comes out like that. And we'll disconnect the SCSI cable and the drive power cable. And then once we get all the stuff out, the board should just slide towards the front of the case. And just like that, it lifts out. So the inside of the case is pretty clean. We'll just give that a quick clean, but the board itself is quite filthy. So as you can see here, we've got our two new bus slots, our video RAM slots, our RAM slots, the battery which has been removed, floppy connector, SCSI connector, and the power supply connector. This is for an optional ROM, but it does have these two ROMs soldered to the board as well. All right, so let's get this guy cleaned up because it is quite filthy. And then I think we can see if everything is going to power up for us. All right, so I'm outside here in the winter in Wisconsin. It's currently -4 degrees F. I got it sitting on a box on my patio where it's snowy. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use my duster and we'll get this thing cleaned up. All right, and with the dusting, this board is looking much better. I would almost call it looking factory fresh. So it's important to use an anti-static source of air when you're cleaning these things. You don't want static buildup on the board. It'll short out components. So if you're gonna buy an air blaster, make sure it is anti-static. All right, next on the list, we need to do the same thing to these components here. So we've got our speaker, it's quite dusty. Power supply's got some dust in it. And I guess the end of the hard drive caddy has some dust as well. So let's get those cleaned up and then we can reassemble things. All right, and with all of the components cleaned out of dust, let's go ahead and reassemble. But before I do that, one thing I want to do is to move the feet from this panel, bottomer side, to this panel, also bottomer side. So we should be able to just pop these guys out. One. 2, 3, and 4. We've got our 4 feet out. So now we just turn it with the bottom side facing the camera here, and we can just insert the feet here, like so. And now, despite the broken plastic that kind of holds them in place, it doesn't look half bad. Doesn't look half good, but it doesn't look half bad. While we're here, let's do a little quick cleanup on those feet. They look a little dirty. I think we'll hit them with some 99% isopropyl alcohol. Should do the trick. All right, and while we're here, let's tackle this asset tag. It's not really coming off very nicely, but it is coming off, so let's keep going. Is it looking better? In my opinion, it is. Maybe now it looks worse to you. But there's no more adhesive, and that's what I was going for, so we're good on that count. I'm going to go ahead and leave this Central Ink Magnapul on, just again because A, I don't know what it is. I should look it up, but B, it kind of tells some history of the machine. You know, somebody had done something, you know, maybe it was just a piece of wire that stuck in, went over the monitor, and it would hold your paper so you could type up your report in school. And that's kind of my best guess, but I don't really know. All right, so to reinstall the board, we just drop it down in, and there are some alignment tabs that we need to fit it inside. And once we get everything squared away here, it should just slide backwards. So with the power switch on these older Macs, you can set them so that they're always on. So in the event of a power failure, it will turn back on. Or you can turn them this way. and that lets you manually turn them on and off. All right, now let's reinstall the pieces. We'll start with the programmer switch and the reset button. So those go in these two holes up here, and then you just kind of bend it and clip it on the board like that. And you can test them out and feel that they're both working good. And then next we can install the speaker assembly. So this goes facing out and it clips onto the board. This also provides some structure to the board as well. So then we can plug in our speaker over here. Then we have our drive caddy bay holder. I guess I don't know what you would call it. We'll plug in our floppy drive. All right, with that plugged in, this kind of sits down on these guides, and then the whole thing just slides forward until it clicks into place like that. Now normally there would be a screw here. This machine did not have it. Let's see if I have a screw that might work for that. Yep, that'll work just great. So that'll hold things more or less in place. As you can see, it's a little loose, but it's holding the board in place. It's going to hold the drive cage, caddy, whatever you want to call it, in place. And then we can reconnect our SCSI cable. Actually, before we do that, let's reconnect the hard drive power cable. And now we can reconnect our SCSI cable. And then finally, our power supply, which has been cleaned but still untested. These power supplies can fail. If you watch my Christmas video, I had two Macintosh 2 CXs, and they used the same power supply, and they both had failed. So there's a good chance this one's not going to work. But... oh, one thing I didn't point out, on the board itself, I did take a look. There are no electrolytic capacitors, so none of the capacitors need to be replaced, most likely. There are some tantalums. Tantalums can fail short, so it's possible a tantalum has failed, but I would say unlikely. I think this machine is pretty reliable, other than the power supply, which does contain electrolytic capacitors. All right, so let me go ahead and plug in my LCD monitor here with an adapter. Let's go ahead and plug in power. And let's see if we get a chime when we turn it on. We do get a chime. That is really good news. So we've got our gray background and our cursor. And presuming everything goes okay, we should get the flashing question mark here shortly. I think at this point it is doing a RAM test. Yeah, and there's the flashing question mark. Great, so this machine works. So maybe this will be a more boring video, but easier for me. So the next thing we need to do is get a hard drive in here. All right, so I decided I would go with a blue SCSI for this one. This is one I'd previously built for a different project, but just had lying around. I've got a SD card in here with two 2 GB drives on it. I believe I'm running system 753 on here, but we'll find out when we get it booted up. So let's go ahead and plug in our SCSI connection. And unfortunately, I don't have the original bracket that goes in here. It's the same as the TCI TCX. The Quadra 700 uses it too, but unfortunately, when this machine was sent off to e-waste, or wherever it was sent to, somebody yanked the drive and didn't leave the bracket. But we've got our blue SCSI installed, so let's go ahead and boot it up. So we will put the lid on, and there's just these 3 clips in the front here. There's one over here. So you just hook the front of the case into those clips, and then set it down, and there's 2 tabs in back that you just lock in place. And since we put the feet on the side, let's go ahead and turn it to its side here. And I thought, since this was, you know, Quadra 700 from, well, it's not from Jurassic Park, this one, probably. But since it's a Quadra 700, and in Jurassic Park they used giant monitors with them, I thought we'd use a giant monitor with this one. So that's what I've got here. So let's go ahead and power this thing on. macOS 753. So one thing we do need to do every time we boot this, because there's no battery, is to go to memory, and we need to turn 32-bit addressing on. With the 20 megs of RAM that this one has in it, you can see the system software using a ton of it for no reason. That's because 32-bit addressing is turned off. So what I'm actually going to do with this one is install one of these cute little Mac bats that I have. So I did a whole video about these, but basically this is just a CR2032 adapter for putting into these vintage Macs. This replaces the half AA battery that's in there and has a very, very small chance of leaking. So if you're going to be using vintage machines, make sure they don't have batteries, and if they do, make sure you've done your due diligence and make sure you're using a battery that won't cause further damage to the system. So let's go ahead and pop this guy back open and install this Mac bat into it. And like any good project, of course, the battery is underneath all of these components, so we need to take these out in order to install the Mac bat. So this is where the clip is that holds the power supply, underneath this plastic connector here. So if we push down on that and then lift up on the power supply, that should just come out. Of course, I did unplug it first. There we go. And then you can see the screw down here. So we'll just unscrew that. This slides back. And I'm just going to flip it over. So, and now you can, well, it's kind of dark. Let me see if I can get some light over here. You can see the battery holder here. So if we take the cover off, we can then take our Mac bat and pop it in. So it's marked positive here, negative here, and the board's marked positive facing this way. So we'll go ahead and just drop that in here. All right, so that's good. And then we can put the cover back on, keep it in place. Now we can lower our drive sled back in. All right, and then we can take our screw and reinstall that. Take our blue SCSI, put that back here, and take our power supply, line up the connector with the connector. And then just drop that into place. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do with this machine before I close it up is a little bit of cleaning here. We've got some probably tape. It looks like someone might have taped over the floppy drive or something. Who knows? Again, sadly, the Quadra branding and Macintosh branding is a little scuffed off, and I don't think we can repair that just by cleaning. In fact, we'll probably make it worse. So I'm just going to leave that area alone. What I'm going to do is take a magic eraser and some Windex and kind of just give it the old scrubby. Now, as I'd mentioned in previous videos, a lot of guys and girls and non-binary folks don't like using magic erasers on these cases because they have texture, and magic erasers are micro scrubbers, and they will take the texture off if you go too hard. But for cases like this, where it's just, a super bad piece of tape or a scuff or something, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of the surface texture just to get it cleaned up a little more easily. We could probably hit it with some rubbing alcohol, and that might take care of a lot of these things, but I'm just kind of a fan of using the magic erasers. They work super well, and I don't think anybody's going to notice the texture missing on this machine. We almost got it cleaned up here. All right, that looks pretty good. They get a little bit of stuff in the vents, and it came out okay. Let's kind of clean those out maybe. And then the top case has some marks as well. I'm just going to give that a quick scrub here with the magic eraser too. That just comes right off. Super easy. So there's a few more marks in here. I'm just going to go through and get them all taken care of, and then we can put this guy back together. All right, and with our magic erasing out of the way, we can reinstall the top. Put it back on its side like it belongs, and we can power it up. All right, so now that we're booted, let's go back in and check our memory. And we'll turn 32-bit addressing back on, and we will give it one final reboot here. Now that we've installed the MacBat, that setting will be saved as long as that battery continues to power when the machine's off. All right, and with that final boot, since this is a Quadra 700, there is one thing I wanted to run on here, and that is the Jurassic Park screensaver. Everybody thinks about Jurassic Park when they think about Quadra 700s. I'm no different. Let's go ahead and hit that demo of park operations. And then, of course, we've got Nedry over here on the keyboard running the White Rabbit script, which disables the park security, disables the fences, everything he needs to be able to smuggle that can of Barbasol off the island. And those electric Jeeps were probably never a good idea. Why didn't they slap some batteries in those things? I guess Tesla or whoever hadn't invented powerful enough cells to power a whole car at this point in the mid 90s. But you know, the gas powered Jeep Wranglers seem like a much better idea. All right, and this is the best part in my opinion. Now, I'd really hope that the screensaver would have just that portion with Nedry shaking his finger, but unfortunately this is the closest we can get with this screensaver.
You didn't say the magic word.
Please! God damn it! Hate this hacker crap.
Anyway, let's jump over to wrap it up. All right, so I think that's going to be it for this Quadra 700. We've got it up and running. There wasn't too much to do to it, so good for me, but kind of made a more boring video. Just really dusty, and we had to replace the missing hard drive with the solid state Blue SCSI, which works really well. Now I did pair it with this big monitor, which I think looks really great. I'm half tempted just to take it to my office and put it on my desk and let the screensaver run all day. It just makes me so happy seeing this. It takes me back to my childhood. I always wanted a Quadra 700 after seeing Jurassic Park in theaters, so finally got one, and I couldn't be more pleased. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Hi guys! Make sure to like and subscribe, and watch more of our videos later. Bye!